Good morning, Year 5. Today we're going to continue our revision. Last session we were talking about the project, and some of you already started sending me some of your work, and they look pretty good. So I hope for the rest to send me their work too. The session before, we started answering the final practice worksheet that I have uploaded for you on Google Classroom. And we started with the lesson body systems, and we revised the body systems, the digestive system, the respiratory system, and the urinary system. And again, I would like to tell you what are the lessons that will be included in your exam. The lessons, there are 4 lessons that will be included in your exam. The first one is the body systems that we revised last session, last recorded session, and the animal grouping, or how animals are classified. This is the second lesson. The third is the sound lesson, and the fourth is the plant lesson. And those are your 4 lessons. So today we are going to revise 2 lessons: the how animal are grouped lesson, and the sound lesson. So let's start together, remembering the PowerPoints that we have been talking about, or we have um, studied in the class. So you know, guys, that we classify the animals, all of the animals, we classify them mainly into vertebrates and invertebrates. What is the meaning of vertebrates? Vertebrates are the animals that have vertebral column or a backbone. They are both the same thing. So vertebrates are animals that have vertebral column or backbone, such as the camel, the crocodile, the duck, elephant, giraffe, frog, lion, rat, snake, and turtle. As for the invertebrates, when we add in at the beginning of any word, it means that we removed the reason of calling it this way. So invertebrate, we removed the factor of vertebral column. So this means that the invertebrates are the animals that do not have a vertebral column or a backbone. Like what? Like most of the insects, and like bees, for example, and ants, cockroaches, houseflies, um, some of the sea creatures like the prawn, the jellyfish, crab, uh, butterfly, and octopus, snail, worm, starfish. So all of those things, they do not have a vertebral column, so we call them invertebrate. We're mainly going to talk about vertebrates, and we classify the vertebrates into mammals, fish, birds, and reptiles and amphibians. We classify them into 5 groups: mammals, fish, birds, reptiles, and amphibians. As for the mammals, they have specific properties that will direct them, or will put them under the name of mammals. Um, like what? Like, as you can see, mammals, they give birth, they do not lay eggs, they give birth, and they feed their babies milk. They also have lungs to breathe. They do not breathe by gills or by their skin. No, they do have lungs for breathing. And they have the coverings that covers them are mainly fur or hair. uh, have fur or hair. This is for the as for the mammals. The next slide, or the next PowerPoint, we talked about the classification of the animals, and We were talking about how we classified them. We started with the mammals. Now we're going to continue with the rest of the uh, uh, classification. So we're going to go with the fish. And fish, guys, they also have specific properties that put them under the headline or the name of fish. They have scales or scaly skin, as you can see. They breathe through gills. They do not have lungs to breathe like the mammals. They lay eggs. They do not give birth. And as I told you, they lay eggs. And of course, they live in water because they are fish, so they live in water. Examples of them are tuna fish, for example, salmon fish, any fish, except, of course, we have some exceptions like the dolphins and the whales. Those two are considered mammals, although they live underwater, because they have all the other things. They breathe through their lungs, they give birth, and they feed their babies milk. Um, Now, as for the reptiles, which is the third group, the reptiles, they have scales and dry skin. It's not moist like the amphibians that we are going to learn about after that. They have scales and dry skin. They lay eggs mainly, and they breathe through their lungs like the mammals. Examples of them are the tortoise, the lizard, and of course, at the beginning, we saw the crocodile or the alligator. Those are very big reptiles. The next group is the birds, and the birds, as you can see, they have wings and feathers. They do not necessarily fly, but they have to have wings and feathers. They breathe through their lungs too, and they, of course, they lay eggs, not give birth. Examples are, of course, the ducks and the ostrich, and this is one of the examples of the birds that cannot fly. And there's penguins too. They do not fly, but they are birds. The parrot, the turkey, and of course the beautiful, beautiful peacock. The owl, I love the owl too. The next group or the last group is the amphibians. And the amphibians, the most famous amphibian is the frog. And they have smooth skin, not like the reptiles. Their skin seem to be moist and smooth. They lay eggs in water. And then when the egg hatches, uh, um, the amphibian live most of its life underwater or a part of its life underwater until it reaches a certain point when it has to get out of the water and starts to live above water. Examples of them are, of course, the salamander. As you can see, it's the same life cycle as the frog. They lay egg, and then there's a larva that comes out of the egg, and this larva develops gills and the limbs that will allow it to come outside of the water, and then it's fully developed, and now it's ready to get out of the water. The newt, of course, is it looks very much like the salamander. Okay, now as you remember, we at the end of this session we gave you some of the exceptions or some of the things that might get you confused. Which group should I put this animal in? So we made it in a sort or in a form of um, uh, uh, questions or a form of like a competition. I live in the sea all my life, but I don't have gills to breathe. I have lungs, so I must come to the surface of the sea to breathe. I feed my young milk. Who am I? Which group do I belong to? I think I said it during watching this PowerPoint, and it's very obvious that it's the whale and the dolphins too. Next is I live in the sea for half my life and can dive half a kilometer under the sea, but I do not have gills to breathe. I have lungs, so I must come to the surface to breathe. I lay eggs and have feathers. Who am I? Which group do I belong to? So this is one of the things also that I talked about. One of the birds that cannot fly, they are the penguins. Penguins. Next, I have wings. I can fly very fast to catch insects, but I have fur, and my young are born live, and I feed them milk. Who am I? Which group do I belong to? Everything says that it's a mammal, but a flying mammal. So the only flying mammal is the bat. That was it, guys, for this lesson. The next lesson is the sound lesson, or should we first? Yes, I prefer that first we answer the questions related to the part that we just um, were answering. Yes, so it's question 3 is the beginning of the questions related to this. Some children went to their local zoo. They saw these animals. Um, tick, tick 2 boxes to show which 2 things the cow and camel have in common. So let's look at all of those animals. We have the ostrich, which is a bird, a cow, which is a mammal, the butterfly, which is an invertebrate, and the camel, again, a mammal. Sparrowhawk is a bird. So we need to tick 2 boxes that the camel and cow have in common. Do they both have horns? No, the cow only. They both have a hump? No, the camel only. They both have fur or hair? Yes. And they both have 4 legs? Yes. Next is Mandy and Halim sort all the animals using the following table. Write the names of the 5 animals above into the correct boxes in the table. So they have, yes, so we have the 5 animals here. We can classify them. First, can fly and has feathers, of course. It's very obvious that it's the, sorry, it has feathers, so it's the sparrowhawk. Next is can fly but does not have feathers, and this is, of course, the butterfly. Cannot fly but has feathers is the ostrich. Cannot fly but does not have feathers is both the cow and the camel. Next is question number 4. Choose the correct answer. Which is a trait of all birds? They all fly, not necessarily. We just said that the ostrich do not fly and the penguin too. They hatch from eggs. Yes. Are they born with gills? No, they are born with lungs. Number 2, which animals are in the same group, crocodile and turtle? I think this will do it. Both of them are reptiles. Number 3, it is an animal covered in scales and it lives on land. What is it? As long as it covered in scales and live on land, so this means it's not a fish, it has to be a reptile. They are animals that have smooth skin and lay eggs. As long as they have smooth skin and lay eggs, they are the amphibian. They have hair or fur, give birth and feed their young milk. It's very obvious that it's the mammal. Next is the only mammal that can fly is, we said it's the bat. A bird that cannot fly is a penguin. People belong to the group mammals, of course, we are mammals. Now, let's go to the next lesson, which is the sound lesson. We talked and learned about sound. We had so much fun. Do you remember when I got you the guitar and the bottles and we started blowing it into the bottles? It was a very fun session. I had fun doing it with you guys. So the sound. So how do we hear sound? We know that there are the uh, we have inside our throat, or inside our larynx, um, uh, which we call it, there is something inside our throat called the larynx or the voice box. Inside this voice box there is something called the vocal cords, and the vocal cords, when we start to talk, it starts to vibrate, and this vibration starts to vibrate the surrounding particles of the air. And this what makes sound travel from the source of the sound. If I'm talking, I will be the source of the sound, to the ears of the person inside of the person in front of you. So the first step is the vibration, and the vibration is the key word in the sound lesson. The vibration of your vocal cords, the vibration of the particles forming the air. The word vibration is the most important part in this whole lesson. So as I told you, the vocal cords vibrate, so the sound is produced. And another example is the tuning fork, and we saw it in the lab. We when I hit it and I made it touch your hand, you felt the vibrations very. It was very obvious. So the tuning fork is also it produces sound due to the vibration of its two wands. Another example is, of course, the speakers. And the speaker, when it starts to produce sound, it makes the sheets that is covering it starts to vibrate, and this what vibrates the particles around the speakers. So the conclusion, sound results from vibration. How do we hear the sound? The vibration is transferred to the air. And this means that when something vibrates, when the source of the sound vibrates, it vibrates the surrounding particles of air around it. And this what reaches your ear. So the air contains atoms or particles. These particles hit each other. So I told you guys that they start to hit each other. So when they hit each other, they come close to each other, very close to each other, and then they hit again when they come close to each other, so they get away from each other, and then they start to hit again and come closer to each other, and so on. This is the sound wave. This how it looks like, and the sound wave is called the longitudinal wave, because as you can see, they look like long patches, and those long patches are made of particles that gets away and then come closer and then gets away and then come closer, and so on. And the part where the particles come closer to each other, and the area here has a lot of particles, this is called the compression. And when they get away from each other and this patch look like they have fewer number of particles than this patch, it's called the rarefaction. So the regions of air that have many particles are compressions, and the regions of air that have few particles are called rarefactions. The continuous compression and rarefaction of air particles is called the sound wave. So drums produce sound wave when they are what? When they are hit. Stringed instrument produce sound when they are plucked, of course. Woodwind instrument produce sound when they are blown. So we are going to take each one of those. So those are called the a type of drums, and they are the bongus. They call it the bongus, and the bongus are they produce sound when they are hit, of course. The guitar and the banjo are types of instruments that produce sound when they are plugged. The flute, or this is not a flute, this is I think it's a trumpet. Yes, and it produces, or a clarinet. This is a clarinet. Anyway, it's something that you blow in, so it produces sound by blowing. The harp, of course, has strings, so it produces sound by plucking. The piano was a little confusing for a lot of you, and I told you to remember Tom and Jerry when Jerry was living inside the piano. He was living under the strings of the piano, so this makes the piano a stringed instrument, and it actually produces sound when you hit those when you press on those keys. It plucks the strings in the body of the piano, so it produces sound when it's plugged. So sound travels through air particles, gas mainly. Does the sound travels through solid particles? And do they travel in liquid particles? The answer is yes. The sound travels through any medium, as long as there is a medium, whether it's a gas, solid, or liquid, the sound will travel through it. Which medium the sound travels through it the fastest? Of course, the solid. And why? Because the particles are very close to each other, so they can hit each other easily, and they vibrate easily and make sound waves easily. Which medium the sound travels through the slowest? And it was a surprise for you guys that the gas. And why? Because the particles are far away from each other, so they take time until they hit each other. This is the structure of the ear, and we know that the ear is sectioned into three sections. There is the outer ear, and there is the middle ear, and there is the inner ear. There is the inner ear, and there is the drum. The eardrum is found in the middle ear, as you can see. It's a part of the middle ear, along with those three tiny bones. Those are the things that produce or make the middle ear. This snail look-like structure is called the cochlea. And this is the structure of the whole ear. Now, next is we're going to talk about the echo and what is exactly the echo. No, we're going to talk first about the types of waves. What are the types of waves? As I told you, there is the longitudinal waves and there's the transverse waves. What are the difference between them? The longitudinal waves, which the sound wave is a type of, is composed of compressions and rarefactions, while the transverse waves, which is the light part of, are made of the crest and the troughs. Now we are going to talk about the echo. And how what is the difference between the following pictures when we produce sound. And I showed you two pictures, one of a furnished room with lots of soft surfaces like cushions and couches and stuff, and the other is only made of walls. They are not, it's not furnished. And we said that if we talked in this room, you will not hear an echo, but if you talked in an empty house, you will hear a very distinct echo. So why in picture 2 you hear the sound back? When the sound wave energy hits a hard surface, the energy bounces back. We talked about this, guys, and we said that any studio where artists start to record a song or music, it has to made in a special room which is the studio, and it has to be, the walls has to be covered with soft material so that no echo is produced. So now this what happens. Now the this speaker starts to produce the sound, and the sound starts to come out of the speaker in the form of waves, and it hits the hard object, and then it starts to get back to the source of sound again. Why in picture one you don't hear the sound back? As I told you, it's furnished and full of soft materials, and when the sound hits a soft surface, the energy is absorbed, not reflected. Does that mean that sound energy is not absorbed when it hits a hard surface? No, we said that part, or very, very small part, will be absorbed and the rest will be reflected. So the sound that bounces back, or the sound waves that are reflected back, is called the echo. And we have taken some of the things that we want to know, they are hard or soft. Of course, we know the diamond is the hardest. Ceramic vase is also hard. The jelly is soft, so no echo will be there if you talk next to the jelly. The cushion is also soft. Now let's answer the questions related to this part. And the questions are right there. Yes. So the next question is question 5. The children have made a musical instrument from sticks. So as you can see, they brought like a board and they started to stick sticks to it. If the children hit stick B, what type of pitch will be produced? Now let's talk about the pitch, guys, before answering those questions. We said that the pitch is we talked about how high or low a pitch is, and we said that the woman's voice have a higher pitch than the a man's voice, as you can see. So the pitch, it could be high or low, and by high we mean sharp. It's really like soft and high, and the one low is thick, like the man's voice. So the pitch, it determines how high or low the sound is. The high pitch is produced by shorter objects and stretched objects. And in this part, we brought the guitar, and I showed you that when I hold the string from a specific area where the part that I'm going to pluck is long, it's going to produce a low pitched sound. But if it's the part that is vibrated will be short, it is a high pitched sound. So the high pitched is formed by shorter objects and stretched objects, while the low pitched is produced by longer objects and loose objects. So how to change pitch? The high pitch, short guitar string, and it vibrates fast, and this causes the high pitch. While how to make a low pitch? By long guitar string, it vibrates slower, and this causes a low pitch. And then we talked about the frequency, and we said that the frequency is the number of times an object vibrates per second. So if I plucked a guitar as a guitar string, how many times did this guitar string get vibrated in 1 second is its frequency. Its unit is hertz, of course. And as you can see, the difference between the waves of the high frequency wave and the low frequency wave, here it has lots of waves. This means that it's a higher frequency because it vibrates a lot, while here has a lower frequency because it vibrates slower. So the low pitched, now let's relate the pitch to the frequency. The low pitched sound has a lower frequency than the higher pitched sound. The higher pitched sound seem to be vibrating more than the lower pitched sound. We also talked about the volume, guys, if you remember, and we said that the volume has a specific tool to measure it, and a specific unit. The volume is how loud or soft the voice is, and it is measured by the sound level meter. It looks like a microphone, and its unit is decibel. Now this is it, guys. Let's now we're ready to answer all the questions. Sorry, guys, apparently something went wrong with the Zoom. So we were saying we are now ready to answer the questions related to the sound. And we have question number 5. The children have made a musical instrument from sticks. So as I told you, there is a board, and they started to stick some of the sticks to it. Started with stick A, which is short, and stick B is the longer one. If the children hit stick B, what type of pitch will be produced? We said that when a longer object is hit, it will produce a low pitch, a thick sound. If the children hit stick A, so we said that a shorter object vibrates, it will produce a higher pitch, so it will produce a high pitch. Volume is how loud or soft sound is. What is the unit for measuring volume? We just said that it's called the decibel. Question D says sound can travel through solid, liquid, and gas. Which medium sound travel faster through it? And explain your answer. And we know that it's the solid. And why? Because the particles of the solid are close to each other. Sound cannot be heard in, and this I'm going to remind you of, and we said that in space they have to use specific radios in order to communicate. They cannot just speak to each other in space because there is no air, there is no medium that the sound can travel through. So in this case it's vacuum. Question 6 says, tick one box in each row to say whether each statement is true or false. Sound waves are a series of compressions and refractions. This is a true statement. When the sound hits soft surface, most of the sound will be reflected, not absorbed. This is false. When it hits soft surface, it will be absorbed. Sound is a type of longitudinal waves. Yes, it's made of compressions and refractions, so it's true. Compressions are regions of air that have few air particles. It's very obvious from its name. Compressions come from the word compress. They are compressed together. So this means that the particles are too many and they are stuck together. So this is a false statement. The frequency is the number of vibrations per second. This is a true statement. High-pitched sound has higher frequency. This is a true statement too. This is it for today, guys. And this will be the last session before the vacation. I hope you all have a lovely Eid, and I hope you enjoyed your Ramadan. It was um, a very easy one for all of us. I hope you enjoy your Eid, and I will be seeing you after the vacation to take the final session that right before your exams. I trust you guys. I know that you uh, can get whatever marks you want from the exam. You're going to do great, and don't worry and don't panic. I'm going to get you the as simple as possible of questions. I need the rest of you guys to send me your projects, please, as soon as possible. And until I see you after the vacation, I hope you're all doing great. I really, really miss all of you, and I hope you're all doing fine. See you, inshallah, after the vacation, and bye bye.